Well, hi, everyone. It seems that it might be cooperating today. Maybe. Maybe. Who even knows? This looks 80s as hell, by the way. Oh, that explains. Centaur, 1981. Challenging table by Jim Patla, who's responsible for many volley hits, okay, and is also one of the designers on Elvira and the Party Monsters. That's a good one, or is that terrible Elvira table? I don't remember. The game features a cool fantasy theme with excellent black and white graphics and great audio effects. Accurate players are rewarded with special features that are only activated by completing banks of drop targets in sequence. Features unique to Centaur include the Blue Guardian rollovers, which were first include outlane control directed by the flipper buttons, and the equatable multi-ball. This forces each player to lock their own balls for multi-ball, thereby giving no carryover advantage from a previous player in multiplayer games. 3,700 units of this table were produced. Hiya, Tiberius. Tiberius. Orbs. Oh my god, it just says orbs. Really like the art, but it's really busy. Now it just says up.
Completed.
Oh no, oh no! That's another low scoring table because it was the early 80s. We hadn't quite figured out that numbers are good and that bigger numbers make you feel even better. Will make you want to pump more quarters into the machine. So they haven't quite figured out that, hey, 1 million points, that feels better than 100,000 points. I'm not the worst at pinball, okay? Listen, it's a new table, I haven't figured it out yet. Oh, dang it. Maybe I am worse in the ball. Okay. That won't be a too hard score to beat. Everyone knows the best table is Space Cadet. Well, that's not on the Pinball Arcade. Why would you play any other ones? Well, because I paid money for these, and, well, I like actually using the things I spend money on. So I figured, well, maybe, just maybe, I should stream random tables. I should just roll a virtual dice, because there's like, I own like 80-something tables on Pinball Arcade. Oh! I don't know how that happened, but I'm glad it did, and then I wasted it. Oh no, that was fast. This is not one of those tables that do the thing that I like to do it. Oh. So, something I meant to discuss the other night that I never did. I saw Guardians of the Galaxy 2. it was pretty good. It was not as good as the first one. I feel like that maybe most of the characters kind of ended up being like parodies of themselves, even more so than the last one. Like, you know, Rocket was an unlikable asshole, so that's just like his entire thing now. Let's not forget the parts where like he was, you know, kind of vulnerable and explained why he's an unlikable asshole to the rest of the world. No, he's just an unlikable asshole. That's his thing, right? Um, and then, well, Groot was funny and dumb, so let's just make him funny and dumb. And Drax was funny and also dumb. Let's make him even dumber. Star-Lord was obsessed with the whole like old music stuff. That's his entire character now. He's just obsessed with 70s culture now. Not saying it was a bad movie. It was a good movie, and it actually made me feel. Like there were a couple of parts where I didn't cry because I'm a manly man, and manly men don't cry, obviously. But I came close. That was the thing I felt. It was the first like Marvel movie to actually make me feel something for the characters, other than I don't even know. Yeah, I'm talking about Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 was a pretty good movie, but not as good as the first one. But I don't think a lot of things could be as good as the first one, because it was just like such an out there thing for Marvel to do. Like, hey, here's a bunch of superheroes that nobody's really heard of before, and we're not really giving them an origin story. We're giving their group an origin story, but we're not giving them an origin story. So, it was honestly like my favorite Marvel movie that they've made. There's just no way I don't think that they could really ever top it, because it was just such a weird thing for them to do. Also, this table kind of sucks. For 3,700 units it was made. But yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy 1 was a treasure I don't think they can ever rightfully replicate. But they didn't really try to replicate it in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which is a good thing. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is more like a traditional Disney movie where like the Guardians kind of consider themselves family to each other, and they fight a lot, and they have to learn that, you know, sometimes not being blood related doesn't make you not family. And man, it's just it's a weird thing for a Disney movie, for like a Marvel movie. But I don't know. It's a good movie. It's okay. It's like compared to every other Marvel movie that Marvel's made, it's still really, really good. I'm also looking forward to Spider-Man, because it's finally going to be a fucking Spider-Man movie where we don't have to explain his origin story to like the 3 people who are going to go see it not knowing what the hell Spider-Man's deal is. He got bit by a spider, his uncle died. There you go. Listen, if you didn't know that Spider-Man's uncle died, you have been sleeping under a rock for since I think 67. I want to say 67. I think 67 is when Spider-Man was first created. Not 69. Honestly, I know you're making a sex number joke, but it might have been 69, to be perfectly honest. I don't exactly remember when Spider-Man was turned into Spider-Man, as opposed to a weird idea that that Stan Lee had crawling around in his brain. My favorite story about Spider-Man was that Stan Lee really wanted Spider-Man to happen, but he was working with a guy who really wanted Spider-Man to not happen, because he thought that no kid would like the idea of a spider-based superhero, and that no kid wanted to read about a superhero who was in high school like them. Like they read comics to get away from that sort of stuff. And Stan Lee was really adamant about the whole Spider-Man thing. So the guy he was working with was like, "Alright, look, I'll let you do your stupid fucking Spider-Man idea, which will fail and sucks. But he doesn't get his own comic. He has to be put into this comic that is failing, and we're planning on finishing anyway. It's its last issue, whatever. You can have your stupid fucking Spider-Man story in this failed comic book," which was Amazing Tales, and it was Amazing Tales 15. They were ending production because Amazing Tales was selling really, really poorly. And so Stan Lee did the Spider-Man origin story in Amazing Tales 15. And then it turned out that Amazing Tales 15 sold like gangbusters. Like it was ridiculous how much Amazing Tales 15 sold. It sold, I think Amazing Tales 15 sold more copies than the other 14 Amazing Tales before it. And so the guy that Stan Lee was working with called Stan Lee up on the phone and was like, "Hey Stan, you know that Spider-Man character I liked so much? You know how much I loved that Spider-Man guy?" And then Spider-Man got his own comic book, and Amazing Tales went on for I think another couple months before it started selling like shit again because Spider-Man wasn't in it. And, you know, I just love the idea of Stan Lee being super stubborn and going, no, this is what the teens want. That was Amazing Fantasy. And it was in 62. Yes, it was Amazing Fantasy, I'm sorry. But either way, point is, Spider-Man almost didn't happen because some guy was like, no teenagers want to read about a teenager who's a superhero and just like them and has their same problems and wants to work his way through it. What are you, crazy, Stan? Oh.
Challenge or feature. Sequence feature. Chamber feature. Guardian feature. Bonus feature.
Yeah, I don't remember how long Amazing Fantasy went on after the Spider-Man issue. I do know that Spider-Man single-handedly saved Amazing Fantasy for several months. Also, Spider-Man was the first of the Marvel superheroes to appear in the Ultimate line. Ultimate Spider-Man 1 came out a couple months before Ultimate Avengers 1, and that makes it have absolutely no goddamn sense because Spider-Man name drops Captain America at some point. Yeah, I don't know why it's called Centaur either. Like, it's 80s van art. It's 80s van art, the game, pinball table. I'm not sure what's going on with it. Oh no. But yeah, I really liked Ultimate Spider-Man for a really long time, but apparently I stopped getting the comics right before it got really bad with Ultimatum. So I'm glad that I didn't see my favorite comic book series pretty much ever get ruined by things that should not have happened. Spider-Man's pretty much my favorite superhero, by the way. Spider-Man, and then I guess it's a tie between Iron Man and Batman. Blue Beetle's also pretty up there. So I get really passionate about Spider-Man because he has some good villains. A superhero, I feel, is 50% as good as his villains. Like, I wouldn't say that a villain makes the entirety of the superhero, but it helps a lot. And Spider-Man has some really good supervillains. Also inspired a lot of actually really classic, like a lot of superheroes that we know today got their start in Spider-Man, like Luke Cage. Luke Cage got his start in Spider-Man, and Iron Fist did. I believe Daredevil first came out in a Spider-Man comic, and Punisher as well. Punisher also first debuted as a Spider-Man thing.
Which means a lot of villains from all of those also got their start in Spider-Man. Like, I think Kingpin was originally a Spider-Man villain before he got co-opted by Daredevil. Although I will say this, read Spider-Gwen. Spider-Gwen is an amazing what-if story about instead of Peter Parker being bit by the spider, it was Gwen Stacy, and Spider-Man is inspired by since he continues to be like a big nerd. He's sort of inspired by Spider-Woman and tries to turn himself into a superhero and ends up turning himself into the Lizard and dying. And Gwen Stacy like is racked with guilt because of that. So that's also really good. It takes a lot of twists on some rather popular characters, like oh god, Daredevil's a giant asshole. You don't even know who Luke Cage is or Iron Fist. Luke Cage has a really good Netflix series if you're interested in learning about racism in superhero stories. Because originally, Luke Cage was originally used as like a sort of blaxploitation thing. So, but the show doesn't have that as much. His superpower is that he's super strong and basically indestructible. And also really angry at racism and systemized racism, and how just because he's black, he doesn't get a lot of passes that other superheroes have because they're not black.
Sequence feature, chamber feature, guardian feature, bonus feature.
Iron Fist also has a Netflix series, but it's bad apparently. I haven't watched it yet, and they've whitewashed it a lot because Iron Fist is an Asian superhero who often works together with Luke Cage because they're really good friends. And they have adventures in racist superhero lands together, and learn about systemic racism and why it's bad, and how you should fight the man. That's literally how they were first portrayed when they were first introduced. Hey, Ampelion, I'm glad he's decided to join me in during talks about Luke Cage. I'm not sure what prompted that, but thank you. But yeah, the Luke Cage series, I think, is the best. Not the best, but probably one of the better Netflix superhero Marvel things. Like, if I had to rate them, it would be Daredevil Season 2 is the best one, and then probably Luke Cage. And honestly, Luke Cage and Jessica Jones are both tied for me, because they're good for different reasons. Luke Cage is all about how it sucks being black in a world where it sucks being a black superhero in a world where white superheroes are just the thing. And Jessica Jones is a lot about like emotionally and physically abusive relationships. And like how they're bad, and how to work through it, and honestly, David Tennant is terrifying as the main villain in that. So gotta pick the pinballs, huh? Oh yeah, thank you So Gomi for the 1 bit. I did not thank you before. But yeah, and then Daredevil season 1 is of the ones that I have seen, the worst one. It's still really good. It's just not as good as the others because they've had time to like work on it and like define and refine what these shows are really about, which is basically to say how much it sucks being a minority superhero. Because Daredevil is technically blind, even though he can fucking see with his ears or some shit. I don't know. Jessica Jones is a woman. Luke Cage is black. And Iron Fist is supposed to be Asian, but they whitewashed him. And then they made his action scenes terrible. I mean, I wouldn't know firsthand because I haven't seen it yet. I don't watch Bad Things. Okay, that's a damn lie. I do watch Bad Things, but I don't watch Bad Things without inherent worth in it being bad. Like, I went to go see the Power Rangers movie, so I was expecting it to be bad, but in an entertaining way. Much like I went to go see the first 2 Transformers movies, expecting them to be bad in an entertaining way. And I was right on the first one, and then the second one was just bad in a bad way. And it just wasn't worth it. So I never saw any of the other ones, even though they sold like billions upon billions of dollars as a franchise. Yes, I have seen Guardians of the Galaxy 2. That's actually what prompted this superhero talk. It's really good. I really liked Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Not as much as I liked the first one, because I feel like a lot of the villains were like caricatures of themselves in the first one. Like, they were already sort of like, you know, haha, it's funny because they're sort of one note, but in this one they're really one note. But I mean, it still made me feel, which is probably one of the first Marvel movies that I can say that actually made me feel. Like, I don't want to spoil anything, but there are some moments towards the end, which I'm sure you know about, Sosogomi, that almost made me cry. Like, legit made me almost cry. I don't want to spoil it because I'm not sure people here have seen it yet or not. Or especially people watching this on YouTube after the fact. And because it's so new, I tend not to care about spoilers if something's been out for a little bit. But Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is just so new that I don't want to say anything. Spoiler. Yeah. Yeah, there were some really just powerful parts of Guardians of the Galaxy 2 that I honestly was not expecting from a Marvel movie. Like, I was not expecting them to do some of the things that they did, and it's all the better for it. I highly, even though it's not as good as the first one, I highly recommend everybody go see Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. a good movie. Just because it's not as good as the first does not mean it's not good, and it is not worth going to see. That being said, I should probably get off superheroes, maybe? Wait, no, I shouldn't, because guess what's fucking coming out soon? Is Injustice 2. The hit video game based off of the hit comic book. And it's made by the same people who made Mortal Kombat, so it's a good fighting game. That's coming out soon, and I'm excited for it because I get to play as my favorite lesser-known superhero, the Blue Beetle, who's super good. And it's about fascist Superman. And if you haven't heard of Injustice, it's basically, so the premise of Injustice is that Superman goes crazy after being tricked by Joker into setting off a nuke and killing Lois Lane, as well as like just decimating Metropolis. So he kills Joker and decides that basically he rules the world now, and there's not much that you can do about it because he's Superman. And it's a whole lot of like, you know, well, these superheroes, they team up with Superman either because they're afraid of what he'll do or because they legitimately think that he's right. There's a lot of superheroes that don't join Superman and instead join Batman as Batman tries to fight fascist Superman. There's a lot of really good, like, Harley Quinn moments in there because she no longer has Joker to be an abusive asshole to her. And like, there's even a good moment in the game's story mode about Harley Quinn and Joker's relationship with each other, and how Injustice Universe Harley sort of has come to terms with it, with him being dead, and how she doesn't really miss him. And then like unwanted feelings come back because the regular universe Joker ends up slipping into the Injustice universe, and of course meets up with Harley, and of course Harley is like, "Oh my goodness, it's my puddin', it's Mr. J," and yeah, Sanagi, there was an episode of Justice League that was like that. It's different in a lot of ways because in it, Batman sort of joins up with him in that, and eventually turns on him. Superman has to fight Batman from the very get-go in Injustice because Batman doesn't believe that fascism is a right thing to live under, which he is correct. Also, Superman doesn't just lobotomize villains; he just straight up murders them. That was a really good movie, and that was a really good couple of episodes, and I like to believe that it partly inspired Injustice, but Injustice went on for a lot longer and had a lot more going on with it, and also has some really cool scenes. Okay, so there's this stuff in the Injustice universe that Superman gives his enforcers that gives them basically Kryptonian level strength for a limited time. And as a result, the people fighting against him end up stealing some and using it against him. And wow, I decimated my old score. And so Superman tracks down Batman because he knows the whole he knows the whole Bruce Wayne thing. Um, he tracks him down to the Batcave after kicking his ass, and so Alfred starts coming down the stairs, and Superman's like, I don't want to fight you, Alfred. Come on, you're just an old guy, whatever. And then Alfred socks him in the jaw and into a wall because it turns out that Alfred took one of the pills that gives him Kryptonian base super strength and just starts kicking Superman's ass because the way Superman fights is that he never really learned how to fight because he's just so strong that just pure strength alone manages to get the job done a lot of the time. And Alfred is like ex-Black Ops military, so he knows how to fight. And so it's just this one-sided beatdown of Alfred kicking the shit out of Superman, and it's really good. And there's another scene that I've seen from Injustice where is Harley Quinn fighting a superheroine. I think it's Power Girl. I want to say it's Power Girl. I don't remember exactly who it is, but I'm going to, for the purposes of me retelling this story, it's Power Girl. So she is fighting Power Girl. Power Girl calls for a timeout so that way she can go throw up because she has morning sickness because Power Girl is pregnant. And Harley just starts laughing at this a lot and says that she can't honestly fight Power Girl anymore. So they just sit against a wall and chill out and talk about the time where Harley Quinn disappeared for like a year because she was pregnant with Joker's kid. So she just vanished and ran away. And went and did the full term, had the kid, and her sister adopted her new son. And like FBI agents are constantly watching her son, making sure that he doesn't like become whatever the fuck the Joker is. And you know, and she went. So she stayed for a couple months to make sure that, you know, that her sister was all right and all that sort of stuff. And then she comes back, and Joker basically acts like, you know, nothing changed. Like he doesn't ask where she's been. He doesn't like even sort of bring it up. He just does not give a shit, and he just proceeds to be business as usual. And, you know, that's part of the reason why in Injustice, the video game, like Injustice Harley eventually realizes that Joker is a big pile of shit and she's better off without him. Which is honestly true. I'm glad she and Ivy are dating now. Or at least they were last time I checked in. It's been a while. I don't keep up with comics, really. I hear big events happening, and I'm happy about them. Like I heard that Ivy and Harley kissed, and I'm like, oh yes, they're such a good couple. They've been such a good couple for 20 years. Centaur's a good table, huh? Centaur's an alright table. Now that I've gotten over the hump of dying after, like, only 200,000 points. Now that I've learned how to keep track of... God damn it, motherfucker. But yeah, I'm glad that Injustice Harley learned that Joker's a big pile of shit. She's better off without him. And I guess normal universe, Harley has learned that too, considering she and Ivy are doing the smooch. Yes, I hear people are hearing the table say destroy Senpai. I think it's trying to say destroy Centaur. But yes, I'm excited about Injustice 2 coming out soon, because I was saying that, you know, Injustice 1 was good, but DC has criminally ignored Blue Beetle, and he just hasn't been in enough stuff. And lo and behold, like, the next fucking day, after I start saying that, the next fucking day, there's an announcement trailer for Wonder Woman and Blue Beetle, and I'm like, oh, that's good. And I'm wondering if the story mode involves them crossing universes again, or if they're sort of done with that. I hope they're sort of done with that, and they're just willing to let the Injustice universe do its own thing without the whatever the base DC universe is called, getting in and mucking things up. I just hope it's not a rehash of the first game story. That was one of my favorite things about Mortal Kombat 10, was because Raiden fucked up so much shit in Mortal Kombat 9 that that the events of Mortal Kombat 4 basically happen in a completely different way, and even then they don't really happen. Like, yeah, oh no, Raiden goes evil, and oh no, these people, and oh no, Shinnok is a thing, but it's a completely different story from Mortal Kombat 4 in basically every other way. Also, Cassie Cage is a good new character who I enjoy quite a bit because she's funny, and she has my favorite fatality of all time. It's the selfie fatality. Of course it's the selfie fatality. The selfie fatality is amazing because part of it is that she posted to a social media site, and one of the comments can be first, but I'm fairly certain that that comment is programmed never to pop up first. Johnny Cage beat up Shinnok. Yeah, like, isn't Johnny Cage dead in Mortal Kombat 4? Doesn't he die in Mortal Kombat 3 canonically? And then Raiden fucked shit up, so that doesn't happen anymore? I'm not too well versed in the lore of pre-Mortal Kombat 9 Mortal Kombat. I know there's a Soul Nado, which is the stupidest sounding thing ever, but also the best sounding thing ever. That's what I love about Mortal Kombat is that at no point does it take itself seriously. Well, okay, that's a lie. It did take itself seriously at some point, and that's when the game started to be terrible. And then it stopped taking itself seriously, and the game started being good again. Now he's the hero instead of Liu Kang. That's right, Liu Kang also, he dies later, doesn't he? He dies in, like, Mortal Kombat 8? 7? 6? I know he dies at some point in, like, the regular timeline and not the Mortal Kombat 9 reboot timeline. I just don't remember what game it is, because I know, his zombie can be seen, like, near the top of the stairs in the very first cinematic of Mortal Kombat 9, where Raiden sends the very vague, unhelpful message to himself. Yeah, Mr. Macy says table's kind of hard and brutal, and I'm still unsure if I actually like it or not. Because when I get going, I really get going. But it's so easy to just stop going like that right there. That's... Bought a PS4 for the Pinball Arcade 2 story. It's available on PC, so I don't know why you got it for this specifically, but if you want some suggestions for games, Bloodborne. Definitely Bloodborne. Bloodborne's the best exclusive the system's got. Ratchet and Clank, because of course I would suggest Ratchet and Clank. On top of it being a very good game, it is also Ratchet and Clank. Uncharted 4, the Uncharted collection if you don't have any of the other Uncharteds. Infamous Second Son's very good. Bit short for an open world game, bit simple, but good. What else is a good exclusive? Kind of think. Oh, Last Guardian is really good. I haven't played too much of it, but it seems really good. Especially, it should for having a 10-year dev cycle. You know? Oh, Mac Mini 2012. Yep. Oh, so I have been reading the Dresden Files still, and I am on book 12? I think I'm on book 12. I'm on the one where Harry finds out he has a daughter. And it seems to me like this book is really setting up like the end of Act 2 of the series, because a lot of things have happened that have made me very sad. Particularly, the Blue Beetle died. It finally got crushed by a giant monster, and that makes me sad. Never thought I'd be sad about a car dying. But yeah, like a lot of Harry's personal shit has been just completely wrecked by this point. By the point in the story I'm at, and he's so desperate that he's going to Mab for help. And oh boy, that's not good. He has summoned Queen Mab, the Winter Fae, and never a good thing considering she wants him to become his knight, and that's not a good gig. That's not a very nice position. But yeah, I'm almost caught up with the Dresden Files. Book 16 might actually be out by the time I finish up to book 15, but I'm almost caught up, which makes me wonder what I'm going to read next. Because I think I'm done with this world. I read Unseen Academials, and if that's the quality of the rest of the books going forward, I think I'm done. I don't want to read Wheel of Time because I've tried reading Wheel of Time like 3 times, and I always get bored more than halfway through. About the halfway point of the first book. Not even the halfway point. Like I don't think I've made it halfway through that book once. I just keep getting bored with it and stuff. I've already read Game of Thrones. You dare not spend the fortune quicker. Wheel of Time's a bit crap, especially if you care about characters. Well, I'm glad that I'm not the only one who thinks Wheel of Time's a bit crap. Abe suggested Wheel of Time a while ago. I'm not sure how long ago, but I just couldn't even do it. Final Fantasy IX Master and Commander. Ooh, and Jim Butcher has proven his worth to me as an author. Even if he does care a bit too much about Tolkien and how Tolkien does things. I mean, it makes sense. A lot of fantasy authors are inspired by Tolkien. I mean, just look at George R.R. Martin. Seriously, are you trying to invoke Tolkien anymore? But the problem with Tolkien is that he really likes to put a lot of words about nothing onto paper. And, you know, just there's a lot of just talking about grass and walking and how many meals a hobbit has a day and what kind of weed they're smoking, because man, hobbits love to toke. There's a lot of stupid people try to say that Lord of the Rings is an allegory for World War II, when Tolkien specifically said that was not the case. You can only stretch death of the author so far. I'm sorry. When the author out and out says that it is not about a certain thing, it's not about a certain thing. However, I will say that Lord of the Rings is very anti-industrial. And and how everybody who lives in the big cities have no idea what's going on, and that the big evil guys are mass-produced in mud and muck and pollution, and they cause a lot of destruction, and they're mindless, and their weapons are shitty, but there's just so goddamn many of them that it doesn't matter how shitty they are. So I will say that Tolkien was probably very anti-industrial, because the dude just loved sitting on a porch and just smoking weed, I guess. But the sad fact of the matter is that a lot of fantasy authors tend to draw a lot of their inspiration from Tolkien, and this includes the way they write. The way J.R.R. Tolkien writes is insufferable. It's not so bad in The Hobbit, but that's because The Hobbit is only like 200 pages long. If we're going to be quite honest, it's a very short fantasy story. But all of the individual Lord of the Rings books, all 6 of them, because each book was split into 2 parts. People forget this, that each book was split into 2 books. There's Fellowship of the Ring Part 1 and 2, Two Towers Part 1 and 2, and Return of the King Part 1 and 2. All of those books are longer than The Hobbit, and all of them are so insufferably written that it's just awful. It's awful to read. It is super dry and straight up boring. If we're gonna be quite honest, Lord of the Rings is one of the most fucking boring fantasy stories I've ever read, which is a shame because the lore of Lord of the Rings is fucking insane and great. Lord of the Rings lore is fucking crazy. It's just straight up insanity, and I love it. And I'm like, why did you pick the most boring era to set of your world, of your amazing fantasy world, to set books in? What are your thoughts on Mercedes Lackey? Never heard of him. I have no thoughts on Mercedes Lackey because I've never read any of their stuff. Oh, that was a basketball. So, unless I die super quickly, this is going to be the last ball. So, it's just insane about how many authors are like, yeah, Tolkien was my major inspiration. I'm like, really? Really? Because your stories are way more interesting than anything Tolkien wrote. Jim Butcher. Not so much George R.R. Martin. George R.R. Martin has a lot of the same problems that Tolkien did. That his stories take a really long time to be told in a lot of words that could have been, and it could have been like, honestly, half the length, and nothing would have been missed out. Especially when he starts just talking about food for paragraphs at a time, and my eyes just sort of glaze over entire paragraphs as he talks about food for 3 pages.
And a succulent pig roasted with the waters with the juices flowing out of its tender body.
Oh God, shut up. And McCaffrey, never read them either. I don't read too much, to be quite honest. Okay, I'm doing a joke because that was just pathetic. So. But yeah, Jim Butcher is really good though. Jim Butcher has a good grasp on when not to just fucking ramble for hours at a time. He has as much imagination as Tolkien ever did. He has good grasp on the fact that a fantasy world, even though a fantasy world is fantastic, it should still have rules, and that characters, especially main characters, human characters, need to follow them. What else has grasp on that? Honestly, the Harry Potter books are pretty good for placing down hard rules on what magic can and cannot solve, and why, when you use black magic to solve those particular problems, it's not good. Oh, Patrick Rothfuss. Patrick Rothfuss has an amazing world, and it's filled with so much cool stuff to do. Kvoth, his main character seems kind of Mary Sue-ish, but then again, a lot of fantasy main characters kind of seem Mary Sue-ish, unless like it's specifically dark fantasy, and you're not supposed to be Mary Sue-ish like Tolkien. But both is kind of Mary Sue-ish because it's like, oh well, I lost my virginity to basically a spirit of the Fae, and I tricked her into letting me live and not fucking me to death by saying that I have no line of reference for this, so I don't know how amazing at sex she is. So you should let me go live, so that way I can have more sex with more girls, so that way I know how good you are. And this works. Then he basically has sex with multiple ninja women. It's just basically like, you know, that entire second book is basically how Kvoth got his groove back. It's a good story. There's a good story in between all of Kvoth getting his dick wet, but man, he has a lot of sex in that book. Who do you call me on Mary Sue, the protagonist? This is true. Alright, I think that's it. I've been playing pinball for a little over an hour, so thanks for I read like 2 books of the Drist series, and then I was like, okay, that's enough of Drist. I don't need any more Drist. Drist is so dumb. But yeah, thanks for coming in, watching, and listening to me ramble about superheroes and fantasy books. This is probably my Elgato's last hurrah, because this fucking thing. I will put hard money that when I close OBS out entirely, my computer will crash. I put hard money down on it. But yeah, so this is my Elgato's last hurrah. Tomorrow I'm getting a new capture card that hopefully will play a lot nicer with OBS. So, bye everybody. Bye Elgato.